Hello, all. I have Jeffrey J. Byron here, sound designer, musician, teacher, husband, podcast host, very funny guy, has toured with some amazing musicians. I am your host, Jeffrey P. Lewis, though I rarely go by that name, usually Jeff with a G. Writer, thinker, social media philosopher, content curator, poet, um, and yeah, sort of experimenting with these digital communication forms. So, JJ, who that's the same person as Jeffrey J. Byron, if you guys don't know.
That's me.
There he is. How are you tonight?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well. I'm alive, which is mostly what we can hope for in these quarantine times
Yeah.
as the moments tick down on August 2020, this most strange moment in human history.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time driving in the car today, and when I'm driving, even if I'm with other people, I tend to be in my head because I find that driving is a very centering, mind centering activity. It's like because I have to be focused on many things at once, or like kind of nothing. It's like my mind just it's I have soft eyes on the world. But I wanted to ask you how your day went because you've been telling me about these 15-hour days of yours, and I don't quite understand them, so I want to know what's all involved.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've just been very intentional, and I stretching in the morning for about 15 minutes, writing longhand with a pen and paper for what ends up being about 30 or 40 minutes, making coffee and breakfast, and sitting down with my laptop and phone, mostly just laptop. I usually leave my phone in the other room. Um, and yeah, just total immersion in all of my problems and all the world's problems, but also my own imagination and inner voice. And um, yeah, I mean, a lot of writing and reading and thinking and feeling and responding. And yeah, I feel like I'm like in a lot of fights at the moment, and like very challenging, demanding back and forths with people where we're pushing on each other's intellectual boundaries and kind of pushing on the limits of processing. I feel like I'm very much at the edge of my brain's capacity to process and make meaning. And that I'm
That
sort
sounds
of
like it could be a good thing, or is it
it.
not?
It is a good thing. I mean, it's hard to live this way. I mean, I've been Yeah, I mean, I've my life is a temple to this work. Um,
So a lot of the things that you described or that you mentioned seem like things that a lot of people do, but it sounds like
yes,
you do them very deliberately or something. That's just the way I imagine
yes,
it. I imagine as you've got this almost like you have a schedule. You wake up in the morning and you look at the schedule. It's like 30 minutes for stretching, and
right.
then you move to coffee, and you're very focused in every activity. And this is how you work with yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm extremely present in every small little gesture that I do. And it's all some sort of a prayer. It's either like prayer or study.
Okay, so that's where it becomes something different. Whereas I wake up in the morning and I'm immediately distracted by everything, and somehow I magically get those things done. Like somehow I get to exercise and coffee and food and stuff, but I never really know how it gets done because I'm
Hmm.
not very present in it at all.
Hmm.
Hmm. So so you said you're in fights, you are in conversations. Are there multiple
Hmm.
people that you're
Oh
in
yeah.
communication
Oh
with?
God. Oh yeah.
Oh, so there's a lot.
I mean, as far as one to one, really. I would say I swim in like 25 or so one to one relationships a day. But
Jeez.
but it may be more if I really go back and like count them all up.
You're like the CEO of a big company. You have to deal with people all day.
Well, now, the company metaphor is great. And I actually think quite a bit about corporate America and the startup ecosystem. And yeah, very much I'm aware of the hierarchies of the world, but I also have that voice of the poet and the artist who, as the great African American author James Baldwin says, the artist is necessarily divorced from and opposed to any system whatever. The artist is sort of at odds with anything that becomes a system. So
I
I
agree with
I'm
that. Yeah.
so I maintain both, and it's hard. I used to call this left brain, right brain. It's like, well, I've got the project manager or the attorney mind that's very neat and orderly and disciplined and on schedule and
Is that the left
revering
brain? Is that the left or the right?
the left.
Okay.
But again, you could get any kind of psychology grad in here who could, tear this model apart. But luckily,
It always sounded like a very left brain analogy to me, or something, or maybe right brain. I'm not sure.
for
I
better or
like it though.
worse,
Whenever we can simplify our brains, it's a good thing.
there's many white men out here on the digital streets talking about the brain, thinking that they have discovered something very interesting and that they're worth listening to. But yeah, so very aware of the structures of the world, and but also the human spirit and the poet voice. And it's like you know, I've kind of started talking about self actualization in public as art. So essentially, just like tweeting my inner voice, just like right onto the internet, just like from the the depths of my heart right into the content box, and just like boom, 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 boom. And like when I can string things together into multiple thoughts in a row, I do that. But sometimes they come one at a time, and it's just like I'm just going to do all my writing in public and just like see what happens, and like treat the public sphere as like a database and like a blank page, and just lose contact with my reputation.
Do you choose a particular forum to do that, or do you just think I'm gonna do my writing anywhere and everywhere on the internet, or do you choose Twitter? Do you choose Clubhouse or whatever? I guess you don't
Yeah.
write in Clubhouse, but
Well, I feel like I made these choices long ago.
the reason I ask real quick is because, well, actually, no, I'm not gonna say that. Go ahead.
No,
You
go
made
ahead.
these choices
No,
long ago.
no, do it.
I was gonna say I didn't want to change the subject and talk about myself, but I feel like I have I have a problem. One of my one of my artistic hurdles is that, and it's something that every artist I know deals with in one way or another, is I have this idea of what I want my art to be like, and it never comes out that way, and in fact it only comes out in ways that I can't control. It's like there's
Mm-hmm.
this beautiful thing that I want to create, but no, I'm just going to create this garbage instead that comes out like in 2 minutes in one part of the day, and I don't get to choose whether that's on Twitter or that's on SoundCloud or whatever, unless I spend a ton of time with it. but I guess so that's why when I hear you say you use the social media, you use the internet as your canvas. I'm thinking, is it the shotgun approach to writing and you piece it together later? Or do you kind of know what you're doing? I think that's what eludes me.
Yeah. Well, later is a very vast space. A lot can be done later, and
Yeah.
even today, I replied to a tweet of my own from 2009 as an act of art, and essentially saying I'm still here. You know that
Mm.
that punk 22-year-old who was like a senior in college or just graduated, who was shooting his mouth off. He's still here. He was right. And now I actually know now what I was trying to say then. And I'll make it look like it was meant to be the whole time. Later, yeah, that's a vast, complicated thing. And it reminds me a lot about what I think an editor is and who I think could be an editor and essentially what my job is. I think one way I could go is be my own editor and like spend more time collecting and organizing my works and putting it out politely. I don't seem to ever do that. I keep kind of telling myself I'm going to do that, and I kind of like want to be that person, but I think I've crossed the threshold. See, it's tough. I immediately run into a wall of contradicting myself, and it's like
Yeah.
how to be a steward of yourself, but also let yourself be what you are. But it's like that's the fight that I write out. So not only am I having my own fight with myself, which is always ongoing, but then there's the like right now I'm bringing that fight in myself to the space between you and me, and I can make space for you to fight yourself as well, and maybe we'll learn that we are the same person, and that we are both the self, and that separateness is this illusion that we have to wake up from, and that your inner voice is my inner voice.
It's really hard for me to return to things, probably because I don't see myself as my own editor. Only when I absolutely have to be. I hate doing it. Well, it's like I said at the beginning of this talk, I'm very distracted. And in fact, I think that myself as an artist needs to be distracted. I'm not going to do stuff I'm proud of unless I'm trying to do something different, I guess, is the way it comes out. But it sounds like you can. So the tweet that you replied to from 10 years ago, from 9 years ago, 11 years ago, was it the editor talking, or was it the exact same person? Was it the exact same artist?
It was today's artist, but I was doing a performance of acting as if it was intentional the whole time.
I see.
Because it's like you can always extend a performance from the past.
How did you even How did you even know to do that? Like, were you reading your old tweets?
I did a search of a particular word along with my own Twitter handle, and I sorted those by latest. So I saw every tweet I've ever sent with that word in it, and it wasn't that long of a list.
Did you do that on purpose? Were you looking for a particular thing, or
No, I didn't know what I was looking for exactly.
you just decided? What was the word? Can you tell us what the word was?
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
you searched for your handle in LinkedIn for no reason besides like you just.
It wasn't for no reason.
It was for a reason.
I don't recall off the top of my head why that was the next move. I was looking for something. I was trying to say something, and that's the cool thing when you said, I think I've sent 44,000 tweets, and it's like, well, that means that anything I'm gonna go say now, I've probably said in some form or tried to say before. And so it should be really interesting to search certain terms on your name, and it's like, oh, here's a long record of me trying to say this thing.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about social media that often gets overlooked, is that it is a database. It is an archive of you. I think very smart people who wanted to make lots of money have seen that about the internet for a long time. I remember thinking, wow, Instagram gets purchased for $1 billion. We better sign up for that service to make it worth it. And it turns out that it's an incredible store of value when people are cataloging their lives in photographs, and that's what it becomes.
The value of it really is the consumer behavior that they've created, and the fact that everybody goes there, and everyone will go there tomorrow.
But just having everybody's content in one place, there's an immense weight to that.
Yeah, people have trouble like cutting ties with that.
So I haven't gotten to the point where I'm using Twitter in that way at all. I've only been using it for a few years, and to me, I don't know what to do with it. Actually, that's why I think it's interesting. And one of the reasons I started following you, we became friends because through a group of artists on Twitter. But I had never used it as a canvas. I never used it that way. For me, it was a tool to promote and find and to network, and that was about it. I never had any intention of even really using it to create content. But I also, for something about me, is that I avoided social media for a long time because I didn't really like what it did to my friends when I saw them using it. I didn't like it at all. And I thought, well, I'm going to be different. I'm going to avoid it. And I started to miss out on a lot of things because my social groups were changing and sort of disappearing. And I thought, okay, well, the world is changing in this way. If I want to be a part of that world, I'm going to need to finally learn how to use this social media in a way that makes me happy. And even still, and I want to ask you about your using a new social app, because I have this idea, I have this theory that we are about to see another wave of social apps that really challenge what social media is and what communication is, and are really kind of mind expanding. And I think Clubhouse is one of those.
Yeah.
And I think that I've avoided a lot of social media because it was addictive, and I have a personality that gets addicted to things very easily. And that's been proven again with Twitter, because I can't seem to. I don't think I could quit Twitter if I wanted to at this point.
Ooh, wow.
Well, I probably could, but it's one of those things where as soon as I even start having this conversation about if I could and why I would and do I, I'm like, okay, I've been here before. So, Clubhouse is an exclusive thing right now. Not everybody can get access to it. It's in alpha.
It's in private beta.
It's in private beta. They're still testing the UX of it. It's a live conversation platform where you can talk to many people at once, right?
Yeah. I've been on it for about, I would say, 16 days at the moment.
And you use it every day?
I have used it every day since I started using it.
So tell us about it.
Sometime, yeah. Well, so I've been using Twitter since 2008. Definitely got really into it like 2013, and have really been a pretty big, heavy user ever since. There's a lot of smart people out there, and a lot of hardworking, good people out there who are very good at their jobs and very intelligent about the world and very generous with their spirit. And I've sort of learned, I think, how to like tune in to people's lives and sort of empathize my way to understanding how they roll. And I've sort of kept up with them and like have sort of always been reading throughout the day and like staying aware of like what those people are reading, thinking, seeing, doing, what they're bothered about, what they're laughing about. And essentially Clubhouse is like it's like a 3D version of that where
I like that. There's an extra dimension to it.
well, yeah. You can create rooms and enter rooms, and essentially it's like, there's a stage and there's an audience in each room, and you can bring people up to speak, and it's just people talking. I mean, all it is like, lightweight. It's very much like this. Like, we could be in a room doing this, and there could be someone else listening, and they can raise their hand, and I'll get a little bloop. It's like, ooh, this person raises their hand, and I can bring them up on stage, and then they'll talk to both of us, and we just kind of riff from there. And someone else might come, or we might stay up late, all jamming. And it's like, well, I've written out my bio of what I am, and my Twitter is there, and my DMs are open.
I can see how that could be addictive.
Well, it's addictive because life is addictive, and it's addictive because I'm desperate to survive, and I haven't figured it out yet. I work 15 hours a day because I can't justify not. I mean, the rent is due, and I don't know how it's going to happen, and I don't have an answer. So you don't really get to relax. You don't really get to be comfortable because you don't know what you're going to do.
So Clubhouse is now part of your work routine.
Definitely.
How is it helping you pay the rent right now?
Well, as with anything, you try to network and learn and share and sell yourself and learn about the world that you're operating in, right? You can listen to, it's a good podcast interview between Mark Andreessen and Brian Koppelman, who wrote Billions and who also wrote another Rounders movie.
That sounds like an interesting conversation. Mark Andreessen is actually the person who invited me to Clubhouse.
I saw that. That's very cool, and I'm curious how that happened. But the thing he said on the podcast, said a couple things that I liked, but I forgot it. I lost my train of thought.
So Clubhouse is it the. It sounds so. Can you? Is it like social media where you can acquire followers too? I assume that's part of it.
Yes. You asked. Yeah, you asked me about how it's part of my workflow.
Yeah.
I know what he said. The world is a complex, dynamic system, and that anybody trying to launch something like a startup or a podcast or a career you're entering a very challenging, busy system of many other competitors, many other people advertising their thing, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
even if I wanted to go pour out all of my trauma on Twitter and just go full blown like therapy session plus like dancing naked in public, like all out, like everything I could give, I would still be up against a lot of, every other media company, every other influencer, every other, professional speaker, as it were, is out there talking their BS. Everyone's talking their BS and trying to get it embraced.
Oh, tell me about it. Well, it's no different in the world of art and music. I mean, that's just, yeah. So anyway, so you do this on Clubhouse. You put in the hours to You're not
Well,
promoting yourself though. You are
no,
networking.
I certainly. Well, see, now here's where we may differ, and it goes back to what you said about your own use of Twitter. You said you were there to promote your stuff, but not make content. It's like, to me, it's all the same thing. I mean, creating content and networking is the same thing to me.
Well,
And
I would say you're fortunate to be in that position, because for me they can mean different things depending on what I'm promoting and what I want to create, which also goes back to the problem of not always being able to create what I want because I don't have that
right,
focus. It's all related.
well, and it's maybe not the focus that you lack. I mean, clarity may be the better word, or maybe you just don't want it enough. Right? I mean, if you wanted to create the thing you wanted to create, granted, I mean, it's Sunday night. It's 10:33 p.m. Pacific time. I rushed through my dinner to have this call. This is a Sunday, and this is another 15-hour workday on top of six before, and I rushed through a meal, which I maybe haven't done since I worked at an ad agency in 2014, where I was trying to get to my next meeting and get into the next glass cube meeting with my laptop, and I'm going to quickly sneak a banana and a yogurt and a cup of coffee quickly and pound it before my next meeting.
Mm-hmm. I remember those days. I
And
mean,
it's
for
like,
me, yeah.
yeah. And I'm doing that on Sunday night. I had to go sneak in a run from 7:30 p.m. to 8:45 p.m. on a Sunday night,
Mm-hmm.
struggling to get every 6 minutes worth. That's how bad I want my life. That's how bad I want it. And even I'm not good enough yet. I'll be 34 in October. I've been hustling. I've been working my ass off every 6 seconds for 7 years, and I'm still not saved. I still need to scrape. I still need to be afraid and be ashamed
Do
every minute.
you do you
And I don't think I'm going to get out of it for the next 10 years.
you I mean, do you enjoy this?
Yeah,
Yeah. So
100%.
you sounds like you are getting your life. So I would say that's the important thing. Spending 15-hour days working your ass off so that you can get to a particular place doesn't sound that appealing to me. I know a lot of people are like that.
Well, the place is here, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
and like we've talked about this, and how much debt one might be in, or how small one's net worth and liquid assets might be. But it's like, well, you've got a nice place to live, and you've got a wife that you love, and the life you have is great, and yeah, it almost really doesn't really matter what's on paper, since like the debt is either going to be like wiped away or it won't matter, or it can just like keep going up and up and up and up and up and never really matters. You can
mm.
always find a way to like not pay what you owe. You can always invent some other thing or make some other promise that you can later go abandon. It's like, oh, that's how shit's worked the whole time.
Yeah, I think since I moved to the Bay Area, I've had a different relationship with debt, for better or for worse. I can't even tell what it is.
Right.
You know what? I think I've become more like what you're describing, where I just, I work very hard. Actually, work is not the right word, because work implies when I think of work, is things I don't want to do that I have to do. That is
Mm.
work. Well, that's
Mm.
what the way I think of
That's
work.
hell.
Well, no, because sometimes I have to do things I don't want to do. I don't always want to clean the kitchen, but I got to do it. It's
But
some
that's
work.
prayer.
Uh,
See, you can reframe that thing
sure,
and make
yes,
yourself see that it's a good thing to do.
right, yeah, of course, yeah. There's ways that I can do that, but I think, and that's why I don't feel like I work very hard at all. As most of the things I'm doing are things I enjoy doing. I've set up my life in a way that from the moment I wake up, it's just distractions. I mean, that's really how I want to live my life. It's just a bunch of distractions. But when the times when it becomes work is when I'm trying to do something that the universe won't let me do, and oftentimes
Mm.
that comes in the forms of relationships. So when I'm working with other people, that's why when you say that you are you have 25 one-on-one conversations a day with people, or interactions with people, I think, oh my God, that must be a lot of work, because it's not that I don't get along with people. I really do, but that's when there's the most chance of work that needs to be done. Work being stuff that I don't want to do that I have to do, especially if it's repetitive stuff. I mean, we've talked about relationships on this show before, and how they can be pretty hard, and even what you describe right now is kind of pushing the envelope of communication with another person. And I know or a couple weeks ago, I talked about a project that I stopped doing because the relationship kind of failed. I think that is the work that I got to do. So yeah, I think that as long as I'm doing stuff that, like, I feel, I don't know. I guess it's not even that I feel. I wanted to say it makes me feel fulfilled, but fulfillment isn't even really a part of it. I feel like I'm going to do stuff that makes me fulfilled anyway. I do have this idea. Okay, so I'm starting to understand the reasons I'm talking to you, as the words come out, and I'm realizing that there's two things that are really on my mind. One is something that stresses me out is not being able to create what I think I should be creating at any given time. Whether that's feeling like I don't have the time to do it, or I'm supposed to be doing it later, or I should be doing it now, but it's just not coming out. That's something that I'm often at odds with. It's something that stresses me when I feel like I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And the other thing is this idea of being able to use the world as my canvas. It it bothers me because I feel like I'm always trying to create a different type of art everywhere. And that also comes into play when I'm doing the work that I have to do, which is often when I'm communicating with other people. So it's like, oh man, throw social media into that, and I don't really know what the hell I'm supposed to do with it, because I'm usually afraid of the way I'm communicating. Like, literally afraid. I'm afraid of the way I'm communicating when I'm on social media. Am I not
Huh.
expressing myself the right way? Am I offending somebody? Am I talking to no one? Should I be worried that I'm talking to no one? Am I talking to everyone? And seeing, and like, to use Twitter as an example, like, when I create a tweet, I'm like, well, who is this tweet for? Is it for me, or is it for other people? And if it's just for me, that would be great. I wish I could just have an account where I could just tweet for me. God, that would be great. But I feel like I'm not important enough for that, or something. And you figured out a way to do that. You figured out a way to use Twitter and other social media as just a place to write. And I think that's great.
Well, I'll quote Oscar Wilde. The true artist takes no notice whatever of the public. To him, they are non-existent.
Mm.
And
Art for art's sake. Yeah.
by that, I mean, well, it's really art for survival's sake and for survival of the self. No, I don't care if nobody reads me. It's not about, I'm the audience, because also the audience is like me.
Do you really not care if no one reads you?
That's the hardest question in the world. I don't know.
Yeah. See, I want to not care. I want to create and not care what people think of me.
Well, I also know that it might be that I'm not meant to be understood right now. Right? It might be that I've pioneered some new way of self-actualizing in public online in many little fragments over the course of time, and that only later will someone be able to put it all together, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not that the writing is bad or wrong. It's very demanding. I mean, the story I've put down, the world that I've spun across, 7 media platforms starting 7 years ago, it's a very demanding read, and I don't think the attention span exists for it right now. And so, I don't think so, because I don't think anybody has the room to take on all of me except me.
So, yeah, maybe no one is meant to, and that's okay. Or maybe
At
you
least,
just need an
at least
editor.
right now. Again, it's like I'm thinking 100 years out, or 50 years out.
Yeah. See, I envy that you see your creative self this way. That there's very little boundaries between what you do. That's the way it seems to me.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever draw a box around what you're working on and say, I won't stray out of that? And when you do like, for me, I'm a musician and a sound designer, and sometimes I will focus on an art project that is all sound, but I don't want to venture into an emotional music place with it. I just want it to be an exploratory music experience, exploratory sound experience. That's what I will focus it on. And sometimes, like when I like to also build tools. I like to build things that allow other people to be creative. Like this app that we're talking on right now. Like, I really like to do that, but for me, that's a different thing, and I have to draw a box around it. I can't just have this app be an expression of myself, part of my story, part of the novel that I'm writing from when from when I was born. I have to, and that's why I think Twitter can be a difficult thing for me to just go on and write, because I'm thinking, well, am I promoting my podcast? Am I just writing something that I think is clever? Am I writing a poem? Am I worried about followers? Am I not worried about them? Am I not worried about offending people? Am I not worried about any of that? And if that's the case, am I still promoting a thing? Is that thing me? And if it is, what part of me is it?
Yeah.
Those are my questions.
Yeah. Well, it makes me want to quote Miles Davis, and he said, "I'll play it first, and I'll tell you what it is later."
Yeah, I think you quoted him last week too.
Yeah, and I think about this quote more and more, because I really just lean in to the urge to say something, and I let the forming process the actual shape-making process of choosing word after word, one at a time in that box, and pushing send. I let that draw out the message, and I just trust that it'll make sense later, right? Because the self who creates is not the self who is not reading the world, but it's like you're reading your own soul as the words are coming up and out.
Yeah. I would love to be able to use Twitter that way. I mean, I can, but I would love to have that as an outlet.
Well, the instructions to do that are very easy.
What are the instructions to do that?
One is realize no one cares. No one cares what you're reading or thinking or doing or saying. Everyone's too caught up in theirs and their own not having enough audience for it. So there's that. No one really cares what you do. There's one. And then embarrass yourself and just absolutely walk away from your reputation. Assume that doesn't exist also. Assume that name and picture and story are all liquid, or they're all fire. And it all needs to be reshaped again today. Right? Delete your name, delete your picture, and then say again, who are you? What do you do? And what do you think? And what's up?
And how did you learn this?
By being ignored.
So you've sort of proven that these instructions work. Did you go through a period of time when you cared about those things that you let go of? Like, did you at one point care about people hearing you and people caring? And did you care about being embarrassed and things like that? And did you have to let go? And was there like some sort of trauma involved with that?
God, I mean, for so long, like being 27 and 28 years old was so important to me when I was living in New York, and
being 27 and 28 is so important to me.
I probably wanted to, be discovered and be seen as a young literary talent. Kind of at that edge of like memoir and poetry and cultural criticism.
Yeah, 27 is it's that year. It's are we going to survive 27? Are we gonna?
That's the question, and it's like that's what makes. I mean, again, social media is so magical, is because you meet yourself in the past, and there's hundreds of them. So I mean, and it's harder to be a person now than it was then. Think about teenagers. I mean, you're talking about being anxious about your own job and obligations in social media. Teenagers don't have any idea, and their parents have no idea, because their parents are working through it too, and they're screwed at their job, and they don't get enough exercise, and they don't get enough creative time, and they're probably very bad at spousal communication, and they're probably very bad at parent-to-child communication, and they're failing at everything. And they're supposed to teach a teenager how to deal with all that?
So the teenager learns from social media, I guess?
Yeah, they learn from whoever pays attention to them. And, I mean, we don't talk about politics much on this podcast, but it's like what the American right is good at is helping frustrated young men feel heard. And this goes just as much in America as in a place like Russia, where it's like, if you can give frustrated young men some, pathway to feeling strong and in control, they'll give you their whole life. they'll give you their allegiance forever.
Yeah, it's crazy how that works. It's yeah.
But
So then you did go then you so you spent a lot of time as an artist wanting those things, and at some point you was there a pivotal moment, or was it a slow process of learning that you should just get rid of all these things? And are you actually good at it yourself?
what's the it there exactly?
The it is the it is having no fears, I guess. Let's talk about Twitter, for example, because I that's
Sure.
where we met. But it could be in the context of Clubhouse or whatever. Is your instructions were to realize that no one cares, embarrass yourself, um, delete everything, and say who you are and what your deal is. Basically,
Yeah.
is to not worry about what people think of you, which I think most people have a really hard time with.
Yeah, they cling to who they think they're supposed to be.
And no one. I honestly, I don't. I mean, I'm talking to you as if I'm, I feel like I'm learning this for the first time, but I'm actually quite a bit older than you, and I've known this forever, but I've never been very good at it. The, the, I really believe that an artist is not going to make anything that they're going to love unless they realize these things, unless they realize that
Hmm.
no one is listening, no one cares, and you need to embarrass yourself. You're not going to be proud of anything you do if you don't
Hmm.
embarrass yourself, really. I mean,
Wow.
you're not going to be proud of anything you do unless you're willing to embarrass yourself. It's not real pride in what you're. It's not, and I mean pride in the sense of accomplishment. I think that's a good thing. Pride can be a bad thing, but when you look back at the things that you've done, those are, I mean, in the end, that I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, that is one of the joys of being an artist, is to realize what I've done, and I'm the one who cares about it, not anyone else. I'm the one who cares. Even
Hmm.
no one else may have cared at all, but it's usually where I put myself on the line, where I've exposed some part of myself, or I've done something that even I didn't expect.
Hmm.
And how do you get there? I don't know. I guess you gave me some instructions. So my question is was there a moment that you changed that? Was there a pivotal moment, or was it a slow process of kind of trial and error or constant failing?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a slow process. I mean, like, it's probably been happening for the last 10 years where you accept that you're different and you have to work it out because it feels very bad to not work it out. Because again, you're like carrying this war around in your head all the time. And it's like you have
Mm.
to deal with it, or else it's going to make you very unhappy and very unpleasant. Um, and life doesn't stop coming at you, right? I mean, it gets, you know, being hungry is really a forcing function to figure out what you're doing with your life.
It
Because it's
never
like,
stops.
because it's
Yeah.
like, well, food costs money, and it's like, well, boom. There's question number one: is how will you support yourself? Now, just because I don't have an answer for it doesn't mean that I don't respect the question. The question is very important. Um, it takes a long time, I think, to be able to have the guts to not have an answer and to not let that destroy you. Right? I mean, used to be I would at this moment like this I would be frantically looking for a job,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be totally obsessed with I need a job, I need a job, I need a job, and that would haunt every minute of my day, every minute of my life. Um, I've made a switch and realized that nobody can employ me because nobody's questions or incentives or vision will have as much magnetic power over me than mine do. And all a company can really do is give me a cast of characters and a language to speak and a world to operate in and things to do and boxes to check. And it's like, I don't need to be given that. I already have it. I've my who I am is that, and I'm already in my place in the world. It's easy to forget, right? Like right now, it feels like we're like down this very strange cosmic rabbit hole, and that we're in like going warp speed. And it's like I feel like I've lost touch with my life. But then it's like, wait a minute, you come back to history, and it's like, I've been doing this for 10, 20 years in a way. You know, I've been philosophical since I was 12 years old, and certainly 15 years old.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we have to kind of look at this through the lens of the market. And we've talked about that
I don't,
before.
and I don't think it's unfortunate, right? I mean, I think I've learned. I mean, God knows there's enough artists who are sick about money and angry about money, and God knows I've been that, and I'm sort of maybe still in a way, because
I,
half of me wishes it was easier, and the other half knows it can't be easier. It needs to be this hard.
well, it's not unfortunate in that, oh, it's so hard to be an artist in this world. I mean, it's unfortunate that you have to be so good at something, but you not only have to be good at it, you also have to be good at figuring out who else needs it. And
Right.
you have to figure out its value to somebody else. And that's a completely different skill, I feel like, or whatever you'd call it. And I think that's what is unfortunate. It's that from a young age, so many of us are taught to, whatever you do in your life, make sure you figure out how to make money doing it. And that's, I mean, that means we have to look at our value in terms of money. And I feel like that's capitalism. That's the market. And it's not a bad thing because it at least makes us so we're playing the same game. We're all playing the same game at least. But I don't know. When you're an artist, you don't really want to play the games other people are playing, and you can still create. You can still be productive, and you can still add to society. But it might not be in ways that other people obviously see. I think
Yeah.
that's why it's unfortunate. Extra work for us.
Well, but it's also not your job, right? I mean, you don't know when your artwork product is going to be useful to humanity. That's not your job. Your job is to burn out completely and use your talent right now while you have it, because not one more day is guaranteed.
I think that it becomes your job to at least put yourself out there, because I know a lot of artists that create constantly, but no one ever gets to see what they do because they don't share it. And I think that is the one responsibility that you have if you want to exist. You don't need to be an incredible marketer of your creations, but you do need to share them with other people. And hopefully that's the thing where you need to realize that A, no one else cares, B, embarrass yourself, and C, you know, whatever C is. But that's where those instructions come in, where you can't be worried about what people are going to think of your art. I think my trauma actually comes from having success when I was young, and having acquiring an audience when I was very young with people telling me I was doing something great, even though I wasn't even sure what they were talking about because I was too young and dumb, and I didn't have that perspective yet. And I just kind of assumed that whatever I did would be what people would love, and that's not, and that, and then to assume that that's even part of the equation, which it's not. It's not really. Like thinking I'll always be okay because whatever I create, somebody will want, and then somehow, somewhere, I'll get money for it, and that will pay the rent. I mean, do you realize that most artists think that way? I just need to create, and if I create enough, somehow the food will magically appear. And it wasn't until I was in my 30s when I realized that, oh, I just got lucky. I think I just got lucky. And I didn't even learn that I have to put myself out there intentionally, because I got lucky with a few things and working with a few people who are happy to put my stuff out there with me or for me or whatever. So, yeah, by the time I was 27, it was I thought I was not feeling those emotions that that uh, that you know the that I was not feeling the emotions that you described, that young men who are so influenced by the right wing. I was not feeling those. I was actually feeling pretty fulfilled. I felt like I had acquired something, but it was kind of a facade. Maybe next week we can go into a little bit more about stories related to that, because there are some good ones. Closing thoughts?
God, I mean, the more we talk, the more ground I see there is to cover. I mean, I feel like we spent an hour, and it feels like no time at all. Which I think is a sign of a good. I mean, that's flow. It's like when you lose track of time, that's the place to be.
That is, to sort of bookend this conversation, at least for me, that is where I feel like I am in. That's where I'm creating what I want to create, is when I'm in flow, when I'm in the zone. And it's really hard for me to use. It's really hard. I guess it would be nice to be able to be in flow on something like Twitter or the internet or anything, but it just doesn't happen like that for me. Not yet. I have to translate everything. There's another layer of translation to the internet. So maybe I'll practice.
Practice makes permanent.
Practice makes permanent.
That's what my good friend, who's an opera singer, told me when I went down and showed him my singing skills. I tried very much to impress him, and he said some good things, and then he also, there were some things that concerned him, and he said practice makes permanent. And it's like, damn, that's like really scary to hear, because it sounds really true.
Yeah. Well, you're practicing 15 hours a day, so that's a good start.
Yeah, I know. It's
I can't think of anything. The only thing I practice regularly is piano. And that serves no purpose other than to make me happy.
But it also recalibrates your whole sense of sound and your whole sense of time and your whole sense of how the hands work.
Well, yes, that's what makes me happy.
But that's also like your work.
Sure, yeah. No, I know. I shouldn't feel like I have to justify it at all. It's actually probably the thing that holds me together, between that and a little bit of exercise, sporadic exercise. And also not really feeling. I'm very grateful that I don't have a life where I'm bound by schedules and meetings and things like that yet. I do have to work. I do have to work with a lot of people, and so we need to schedule things like this call. But yeah, I'm grateful that all of that is still new and exciting to me. It's not something that I feel like I need to show up for.
Nice. All right. Well, we will try to end this at 1 hour exactly. Thank you so much for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.